Born in the UK, Russell Walters has been involved in the outdoor industry since the early 1980s. A registered Maine guide, Russell has experience on the east and west coasts of the United States, including a 4-year term as general manager for O.A.R.S in Angels Camp, California. Russell returned to Maine in 2000 to become president of Northern Outdoors, a 4-season adventure resort located in the Forks. Russell serves on a number of local, regional, and state organizations, including as a board member of the Maine Huts and Trails, and as the current chair of the Maine Sports Commission. Russell also serves as regional director, North America, for the Adventure Travel Trade Association. His work for the ATTA takes him the length and breadth of the United States and abroad, working with destinations, tour operators, travel agents, and guides to promote the economic and conservation benefits of adventure-based travel. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Okay, Russell, so to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Nancy, I growing up I always say I grew up in a little pond, a little island just off the coast of Maine.
You're right.
Grew up in England, and when I was going through high school in England, I did a lot of kayaking and was looking for a place that I could train and run rivers all summer long. And going through university, I read about this place called the Kennebec River on a little tiny town of the Forks where the rivers ran every single day all through the summer. And so I wrote to all the different outfitters on the river at the time. I think there were maybe 13 or 14 different whitewater rafting outfitters. This was back in like 1983, so it was the early days of rafting in Maine. And one of these characters wrote back to me, and I think you know that character.
Yeah, and I mean, were you writing letters and sending them in the mail, like airmail?
That's exactly what it was. I mean, forget pre-internet or anything. I wrote a letter. I waited for it to come back by mail. At 2 a.m. one night, I got a call in my dorm, in my halls of residence. And somebody says, there's an American on the phone for you, and he wants to interview you. Well, of course, he didn't. This gentleman at the time was Wayne Hockmeyer, who was pretty infamous in the world of whitewater rafting. And he didn't pay any attention to time zones or anything of that nature. So he expected me to do my interview there and then at 2 a.m. and offered a chance to come out to the Forks, Maine. And my plan was I was going to come here for one summer, going through university. And then I was going to go to the West Coast, and then in my third year I would go out to Australia or somewhere. But I had such a good time in Maine.
And the Hockmeyers, both Wayne and Susie, were just so in love with you, and vice versa, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, such a contrast to the world that I lived and grew up in. Here I was living in 20 miles outside of London. The river that I was on was the Thames River, which was this murky, dark, not whitewater, hardly free-flowing body of water. And then you'd come out here and you got this, beautiful river gorge and fabulous white water running every single day. So, and a lot of people, and at that time, there was a spirit of nobody can tell us what to do, in a sense. We're here pioneering our way through some of these ideas. So it was really intriguing. So that's really my start. I would go back to at the end of the summer, I would go back to college in the UK where I was studying, and Wayne and Susie offered me the job to come back out the second summer. So I'm like, wow, I should be going to California, but you know what? It's Maine. What's there to lose? And came back out and kind of did that for 2 or 3 years afterwards as well.
And we probably should jump ahead a bit and say that now you are running Northern Outdoors and you're living in Kingfield, Maine, and you have 2 grown sons and they themselves are rafting now, right?
Yeah, no, I live in Kingfield. I come over to the Forks 3 or 4 days a week. I'm president of Northern Outdoors. Wayne is he's no longer with the company. He kind of retired and moved down to Florida. And Susie is still here on a daily basis. She too lives, part of the year over in the Kennebec Valley and part of the year over at in the Carabasset Valley. And yeah, I have two grown sons who participate in all that's good in Western Maine. I mean, one of them is just the oldest, Harry, is always involved in mountain biking over in Carabasset and Carabasset Trails and that whole piece. And my youngest son is playing soccer like a madman, and they're going to be on the river, this weekend. So as guests and family. So yeah, I think we live we're very blessed to live some of the life we live.
And of course, I mean, I have to include the part about when we met each other, because in 1991 I launched my agency and I was living at Sugarloaf, and I think I was doing like step aerobics class with Susie at the Sugar Tree House Club. We wore those unitards, like the one-piece leotards that were very fashionable at the time. This was in the days of like Jane Fonda workouts and everything. And so Susie heard I had started my own PR agency, and she asked me if I wanted to talk to herself and Wayne. So Northern became my second client, and you and I got to know each other. And I think that's when I drank a little too much beer or wine or something one night and said, hey, I'm going to become a whitewater rafting guide next summer.
I think the story goes a little, it was both ways. I think that it was, if you're going to take on the Northern Outdoors account, you really need to understand the ins and outs of being a raft guide. And the only way you're going to do that is guide training. And of course, you jumped at that challenge, much to the to scare everybody around here. And 5 days, your lovely wetsuit, you traded the leotard for the wetsuit. And I remember it being quite a show.
Yeah. Well, of course, I had just had my first child, my son Craig, who now is turning 27. So this must have been 27 years ago. I had just had him, and I called my mom and I said, you got to take the baby because I've got to go train for rafting guide. And I was, like an old lady in my 30s, and all the other people in guide training were these young stud muffins in their early 20s. But I showed him a thing or two about how to float down through that class 5 whitewater.
Yeah, still one young gentleman, Mike Desjardins. He's still in counseling if he ever listens to this. So,
oh gosh, those were the days. In any case, it's been a great run knowing you and the Hawkfires, Russell. In any case, but getting back to our agenda here, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do differently? Would you do anything differently?
Yeah, that's and then I look at that and I say, what would I do differently? I don't think I would change much. I mean, if you'd say, well, yeah, I'd move Northern Outdoors closer to Portland or closer to Boston. But then if you could do that, it would change the whole sort of allure of the place anyway, because I think it is that distance that bring, people are amazed when they come up here. So I don't think I could do much. I mean, I think, as you said, it's been a good run. It still continues. Maine is that special place. And, I think we've all of us learned to adapt and to evolve and not remain stagnant. So I think that's, part of the joy of being up here. And again, it's the same sort of, it's still a little bit of the frontier mentality is that people tell you, People don't tell you what you can't do, and you really try and keep pushing the envelope a little bit.
Well, that's one thing I specifically remember about working with you is every time we met, it was always like, okay, what are we going to do now for marketing that's new and different? And we were always keeping our eye on the competition and looking at what other companies were doing all across the country and even around the world. And how are we going to replicate that? And how are we going to compete? And you definitely pushed me, and I liked that. I admire the fact that you always wanted to stay on top. And even though you were operating out of this remote town in Maine, but I mean, again, and thinking about moving the company closer to Portland, one of the great things you have is not only the Kennebec, but you've got the Dead River, and then you've got another location on the Penobscot. So this is world-class whitewater, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. I think that the location is, we're the sum of our assets, right? And the assets are those rivers, the location, even the highway that we're based on. Route 201, as it's that corridor from Portland to Quebec City, and all of the snowmobile trails, and the ITS, and the Appalachian Trail. So all of these things. It's not possible to move the company, but so I think that, that's what we're blessed with. And as technology evolves and we're able to sort of harness both technology and some remote working skills and communicating with people, not now in telephone booths at 2 a.m. in the morning, but, in real time through multiple different communications channels. I think that some things change and some things stay the same.
Well, of course, I love the story about how Wayne is considered the father of whitewater rafting, and how the first time he went down the river, he couldn't get any paying customers or guests. So he actually went into the bars in Greenville, and didn't he pay some bear hunters to go down the river with him?
Yeah, he basically knew that the bear hunters would be hunting, in the evening, and they wouldn't be there in the heart of the day. And so he got a guide and brought some of his sports out on the river as almost like a test case, and took them down the river and scared most of them to death. We didn't have the technology, we didn't have the commands, we didn't have the equipment.
Life jackets? Did they have life vests on?
I believe they were. They did have life jackets. I'm just not sure of the quality of them. But I know.
Yeah, right.
No, and they had, of course, they at that time they had what we now refer to as bucket boats, which are rafts that fill up with water and you have to bail them with a bucket. Today we're all using self-bailing rafts. Water comes in and it flows out the floor, so we don't have to do that. So this boat was really heavy, and it was careering down river, and in some cases I've heard out of control. But when Wayne got to the Forks, the response from these sports, these people that live their life in the woods, was that they were both elated and happy for their lives. And I think Wayne realized at that point, man, this is something special. We can.
And they kissed the ground when they got down.
That's right. They kissed the ground, and we realized, there was something here, and I can take more people down this river than I can ever deal with if I'm just fishing one or two people at a time. So I think that's when the entrepreneurial spirit of Wayne and all the things that he'd done in his past sort of all kicked in together with his passion for the out of doors.
And of course, you arrived not that much later. So, you really, in the past 40 some odd years, have seen the evolution of this sport.
Oh, yeah. We just had a big party here this weekend, Nancy, and one of the groups, it's called the McCarthy Party, and they had 160 people, all rafting and around for the weekend. And this was their 30th year of rafting with us, in a row. And, we were lamenting the idea that, when they first came here, everything was just really, it was all camping, camping in cabin tents, and there weren't or very few, indoor accommodations, or a few indoor accommodations in the lodge, and now today we've had to evolve to have, big group cabins and small cabins for folks and indoor accommodations and hot tubs and pools and just our own bar, restaurant. I mean, we brew our own beer. We started that before the craft brewing evolution happened
I know. I was part of that.
Right.
I remember that.
20 something years ago. And all of those things, as well as, God forbid that the Wi-Fi goes down on any given day because people wouldn't be able to connect out. So, I mean, I think that it's just now the marriage of all these different things, the location plus the amenities plus the accommodations plus the technology to keep it all running.
Right. Yeah. So PR, marketing, and social media have changed drastically over the course of both of our careers. And what techniques are you using now that you weren't using when you started out?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, of course, we're not using faxes very much anymore, thankfully. But I think that, for us, I mean, obviously we've been through the world of media relations, thankfully, thanks to you and your coaching and your counseling and advice at Marshall Communications, and we've dealt with a lot of the media pieces. But I think that the thing that we remain strong, I would say, in social media and getting our messaging out and encouraging people to share their messaging. But I think the biggest thing for us at the moment is customer experience, and I read so much about CX, customer experience, and the manifestation of that for us is what we might have called reviews. Where today the customer really, the guest has all the power. And so we do a lot of work in gathering feedback from guests and analyzing the feedback on a daily basis by different activities and different trips and seeing which ones are running well and listening really, really hard to the guests to find out where we need to make improvements and where things have gone awry. And yes, they go awry every now and again. But we, just the speed of which we can react to particular trips or particular things that happen in and around the lodge or on the rivers or what have you, gives us the ability to keep an eye on things in almost real time. And I think it's that feedback because, we used to, I think, from a technology and communication standpoint, I think we used to almost fear like TripAdvisor and Yelp and those things. And now I think we've learned in a way to find a way to embrace that and use that as part of even the social messaging and our communications across all the different platforms that we use.
Well, I'm sure we could have a whole podcast episode about that, and maybe we will have you back because so many companies do fear negative reviews. But I feel like there's a good book called Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer. And Jay Baer talks about taking people who, if they take the time to sort of hate on you, maybe they really need some hugs. They need some love back. And if you do love them back, then you can turn them around and make them into brand ambassadors.
No, that's great. I mean, we think about. I talk about these things in terms of technology because that's how we gather reviews. But even at the very simplest level, I mean, we have a paper review. It's a photocopy sheet that we give to everybody, and they show up on my desk every single morning. And it's literally the first thing I do is go to those, and that gives us an idea of how did we do yesterday? How did we do last night? What was breakfast like? And we look there, and then this constant reviews process of either reviews that we're sending out or people that are posting independently, electronically is just, and it's data gathering is what it is to find out, in the minds of the consumer. We think we're doing everything right, and we very clearly often learn that we've got some improvements we can be making. So we just got to be attuned to that.
Well, I think the fact that you care so much and you have created systems and processes to gather the feedback and then to respond and react, that's obviously why your company has continued to be so strong.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, we've had to we've had to learn from it. We've had to, we all take it a little too personal. I think when you read those not so good reviews, and like, man, we try so hard, but then we stop ourselves and be like, well, we obviously fell flat here. So how can we? What do we got to change? So I think that it's the devil, the devil you do, devil you don't. But it's proven a good mechanism for us.
So maybe these negative reviews have been an obstacle to success, but have there been other obstacles to success in your career, and how have you overcome them, other than having a funny accent?
I don't think that's been an obstacle. Well, maybe it has.
No,
I
I
still
think that probably draws people to you.
I still go into town and I'm still that new guy from England. So after 30,
Yeah,
35,
right.
so I mean, I think I really I put into three sort of main buckets here. I mean, I think technology, and I like technology, and I seem to talk a lot about technology in a sense, but having being able to we're a small business, and there's lots of these small guiding businesses, bed and breakfasts now that Airbnb is getting involved with experiences and adventures and things, and there's all these like lodging plus hiking, lodging plus experience. So there wasn't really good technology systems, reservation systems for that, and along with 4 or 5 other colleagues, friends from literally around the country, who did the same sorts of things as we did, but maybe one was in West Virginia, one was in Pennsylvania, one was in Colorado, and we were similar but different. All had the same interests, and we put together our own technology system, our own reservation system, and I laugh at it now because the original version of it was called Res 2000, so that tells you when it was built. And that same system has been adopted now over the last 19 years with the same group of people, and it's allowed us to sort of stay ahead of the curve of managing our own data and managing our own processes without being necessarily held up by others that didn't see things the way we saw it, that wouldn't allow us the opportunity to develop things on a custom basis. So I think technology has been something that's an obstacle. We had to really think hard about how to overcome it, and did it pretty creatively. I think that system now, as well as the 5 founders that use it in their businesses, I think there's 20, 25, 30 other people, 30 other companies that use that system now around the US and North America. And then I think, Wayne always had it, seasonality and staffing in the hospitality world. Seasonality and the peaks and valleys of what we do really can be really trying. And so I think we've tried very hard to find ways to fill up the shoulder seasons and bring people to the Forks in the, not in July and August. Here we are in the middle of July and August, but, not in peak snowmobile season, because otherwise we're trying to, manage this business that's overflowing at certain times of the year, and then nothing's here at other times. So we've always worked really hard to level out the if you like, the demand curve, if you like, the pattern, the visitor pattern of people coming here. So that's been something that I think we've worked hard at. And Wayne had to do it back in the day. I mean, he was a rafting company that, to attract people like myself, he knew he had to give us a year-round job. So he, developed into the snowmobile business and other things. And then I think staffing. I mean, staffing all over. I don't even know which industry isn't challenged by staffing, but particularly perhaps up here in these small rural towns in northern New England. I think that staffing is a challenge. We're lucky that we're in a fun business, but it's still a demanding business, and people have lots of different options. So we have to be, I think, creative in how do we, where do we look for staff? How do we train staff? How are we treating staff, and how do we manage that whole process? So I think those technology, seasonality, staffing have been a constant, something that we're always looking to try and wrestle through on a year-to-year basis.
Well, I commend you for, first of all, I know you've been very much involved on a national level, and I too am part of a national group of PR and advertising agency owners, and I know that we can learn so much from, you know, people who are doing business in other parts of the country, and sometimes I think Maine is a little bit isolated, and so I think it's great that you've been part of the ATTA, and you also created this group that created the reservation system. So that's great. And then the other thing I think with regard to your staffing is I know there's a whole bunch of people that go back and forth between Sugarloaf in the winter and the Forks in the summer. And I think that they've patched together a nice life. I know Emily Yearwood, who we were just talking about, whose dad is one of the owners of Northern, and she and her husband work both at Sugarloaf and Northern. So I think that's great.
Well, I think it's, I think that's the passion for the region. I mean, Emily was, she was one of the people that was at Maine Mountains Children's House, the Montessori school in Kingfield.
Yeah.
And, and I think then there's a bunch of stuff because the skill sets and the demeanor and the attitude is the same. I mean, whether they're working on the hill in ski patrol, or whether they're teaching skis, or working in retail over there, or in the bars and restaurants, it's wanting to be in that outdoors community. And Sugarloaf's done a great job of creating its community in the winter, and we hope we have done an equal job of creating that same community in the summer. And I agree, Nancy. I mean, that the ATTA, has been something that's really, I've been involved with that for now 15 years, which was really a North American based outfit. And, here now they are running global, adventure summits in Sweden and, other places around the globe. And I think that often in tourism, and I often say this, in tourism and maybe in adventure tourism, it can sometimes, we've got this amazing job, right? We take people hiking, we take them ATVing, we take them snowmobiling, rafting, whatever. But it can also be pretty lonely, because as a business owner, you're competing almost head to head with the folks in your town, in your community, and yet, if you can network and find a way to meet other creative, collaborative souls in whichever industry you're in, I think that often helps share, the problems, the challenges, the opportunities are the same, but it helps to talk those through with people, and that has always served me well. I think we find it. I'm just thinking about this now that I'm thinking about the Brewers Guild. Wherever you go around the country, you always find that the brewers, and I don't know why this is, but the brewers and the Brewers Guilds are always collaborative. They're working together to develop recipes and work collectively to bring people to their state or their beer trail. And I wish sometimes other areas of tourism would think more collaboratively about how do we share what it is we have and bring these guests and provide them with a service across an entire region, rather than just trying to hold it all close to our vests.
Well, maybe people in other industries should sit at the bar and drink more beer. That might be the answer, because, no, really, I think people who are brewers probably spend a good amount of time, sitting at a bar, tasting beer, talking about beer, and talking about how to do it better. And that probably makes them collaborative in nature.
Yeah, you might be right.
Well, we're going to continue in just a moment with more from Russell Walters. But first, I want to invite everyone listening to, first of all, join the PR Maven Nation page on Facebook. And we're having a first anniversary party of the PR Maven podcast. And Russell, you're invited. And speaking of breweries, we're having it at Rising Tide Brewery in Portland on September 25th. That's Portland, Maine. But I know we have people coming in from other states. I was just talking with Kate Payne, who was one of my guests. She's from Stowe, Vermont, and she's planning to come over. So we're hoping that everyone who listens to PR Maven, to the PR Maven podcast, will join us. And we're actually going to do a live podcast with Lieutenant Tim Cotton from the Bangor Police Department. This will be my second episode with him, and so I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks, Russell, and we're going to be back in just a moment after we hear a little bit about the Marshall Plan. This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together, we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation. Okay, welcome back. And today I'm really happy to be talking with Russell Walters, who's president of Northern Outdoors, which was my second client when I started there was then Nancy Marshall Communications. He has always called me NMC Worldwide because he knew from early on that my agency had the potential. And actually now we have spread our wings with international clients and media contacts. So thank you, Russell, for being like you had the crystal ball for my agency.
And you had the passion in the network, so it wasn't difficult to see where that was going to go.
Thank you. So, Russell, how do you measure your success in PR, social media, and marketing?
Yeah, I think for us, we're a relatively small company, and I think for us, it's, yes, we track numbers of Facebook followers and LinkedIn subscribers and things like that. But I think more from our point of view, it more about engagement. So are we, whatever we're posting, is it getting engagement? Are we having a conversation and those things that are attracting people, let's do more of them. And those that aren't, let's do less of them. I mean, it's pretty simple. From our point of view, we don't really care that just drive numbers for the sake of driving numbers. It's really more about the information and the reaction to the information that we're either putting out or responding to.
Yeah, one of my guests recently, Chef Matt Ginn, who's the chef at Evo Restaurant in the Old Port, says that one of his metrics of success is how long he can retain his staff. And I thought that was an interesting metric and very telling. So he realizes that the more or the longer his staff stays, the more successful he'll be and the restaurant will be. So I feel like you have a high return rate of staff. So from that perspective, you're doing well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, especially in the restaurant business, which is tough with turnover. So I applaud him for that measure.
Yeah, I think it's great. So, most successful people like you have a network of fans and followers, either online or in person or both. And obviously, your network is worldwide. Have you built that network consciously, or has it just happened on its own?
I kind of laughed at this. Um, one is that you look at yourself and say, well, define success. How am I successful? But I don't. I think generally, personally, I'm a pretty private person. I don't, other than, what we do for the company at the Northern Outdoors Facebook page, I don't promote a lot through my own Facebook page, my personal, or even through LinkedIn. You could probably give me some coaching and all of that, Nancy. I mean,
I'd be happy to.
But I've always been that person that wants to, I want to pick up the phone. I want to talk to somebody. And so I think that the opportunity to, meet people at an event and see, if there's a fit, if there's something we can learn or benefit from each other's, wisdoms or experience, and then sort of speak with them on the phone, and have that engagement at that level. And then of course now we've got, incredible tools such as Zoom and FaceTime. So, it's not in a lot of the work that I do with the ATTA, it's not uncommon to start a call, first thing in the day. I'll start off with a call to Europe in the morning and finish off with a call to a Zoom call to the West Coast in the afternoon. So I think the way my network has grown it's never been something that I've planned. It's always been just this ad hoc relationships, meeting people and seeing where we can, help one another, I guess.
Well, there you go. That's that collaborative aspect that I do feel that you emanate the spirit of collaboration. And I know that in your marketing partnerships, for example, you've developed marketing partnerships with Sugarloaf, and definitely you always came to the table with the attitude of how can we help each other? What do we have that we can offer you, and what do you have that you can offer us?
Yeah, and I think we learned some of those things from, people like some of your great mentors. Chip Carey, I think, was, how do we? Chip wanted to keep you engaged, and so Chip was one of those people that said, "Hey, I've got this great resource in Nancy Marshall and this great media thing." So I think that those types of things. How do we come together to develop resources that will benefit? And it truly has to. It has to benefit all parties. That arrangement, which is, what, 30 something years old, almost, no, 30 years old, it had to benefit us. It had to benefit Sugarloaf, and it had to benefit you. If it didn't make sense for any one of those parties, then it wouldn't have been a sustainable partnership. And I think those are the things that are enduring and lasting.
That's right. Well, you mentioned Chip, and I thought of Chip earlier because when I was first starting my agency and you and Chip were both clients, you both always were emphasizing, this whole technology thing. And technology was really in its infancy then, but we really did embrace, using technology for marketing and communications and staying on top of things like databases, and then of course social media when that started developing. So I feel like we really have embraced that and leveraged it to help both Northern and Sugarloaf.
And tried to keep up with it. Now we've got the young guns that are sort of out there, learning it and telling us how much we've become dinosaurs because we're not using the greatest thing. But I think...
Oh, believe me, I have two sons in their 20s, and I tell them they're on my board of directors, and when we go out to dinner, we call it we're having a board meeting, and my son Jamie, who's 23, is like, "Ma, your Instagram sucks." It's like, oh gosh, I feel terrible now. So I'm always trying to improve it, but I don't know if I'll ever meet his level of expectation. So, Russell, in your line of work, is there a resource such as a book, a website, or an app that you have found helpful, and why?
I mean, I do use a lot of, I listen to a lot of, podcasts and things, but when I went back in the deepest, darkest memories here, and I said, what was it that was really formative? And there was a book by a gentleman by the name of, Hal Rosenbluth, and he was, I think he's still alive today. In fact, I think he's just written some more recent books, but he was in the travel business, and he had written a book called The Customer Comes Second. And I think that in reading that book, we all talk about the importance of our customer, and clearly they are why we're here. But his premise was, your staff come first. And I think that same thinking was something that was a great piece of advice and a great learning that I had really early on. Is that we're none of us without our staffs, without our employees, without the folks that are working here day to day alongside us. None of us are worth anything. So that book has always had a dramatic impression on me.
I agree absolutely, because your employees are the ones who are the ambassadors for your brand, and they're the embodiment of the Northern Outdoors brand to the guests. So if you're not taking care of them, it's going to show all over. So, and your guests won't be having a good time, whether they're in the restaurant or out in the rafts or on the bus on the way. So I know that every aspect of the Northern Outdoors brand experience is orchestrated, and of course you're improving it constantly, because your guests are giving you daily feedback, and you respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we I might have thought I do a pretty good job when I'm out there, but I'm amazed when I go out there with with younger staff and hear their ideas and their input and their experiences, just how much of themselves they bring to the thing, and that's what's important. I mean, how it's not some staid old thing. I mean, sure, there's things we do that are the same as we've been doing for 25 years, 30 years. But then there's other little touches along the way that have been changed, and it will change on a daily basis, thanks to the input of our staff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so speaking of staff, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's just starting out in their career?
It always sounds cliche, doesn't it? But find something you're passionate about. Find something you love. Find something that you're really engaged in. Research the hell out of it, and get it done. And get it done with commitment. And either fail fast, in a blaze of glory, or keep plugging away at it, because we always say here it always takes us 2 or 3 years to refine any new project, any new thing we do. And as I'm in this, in the world seems to me to be very entrepreneurial right now. People starting up businesses and starting up new projects. And, I always encourage people to, well, it's great that you start it. You're either going to fail it fast or stick with it for 2 or 3 years, because it's not until that second or third year cycle that you've really worked the bugs out of it and got your followers on board and get that word of mouth thing going and all the benefits of the social. So keep it simple, enjoy, love, be passionate about what you do, and give it the good old college try.
That's right. Well, if you're passionate about it, again, talking about the being a brand ambassador, if your employees are passionate about their work, the guests will know it right from the get-go, from the time they make their reservation right through their whole stay, and even the follow-up. It will just show. And I think that's something that Northern Outdoors has really done a great job of. There's a real esprit de corps there, the green machine.
And again, that's something we work constantly at, all the way from that first touch point, that first point of inquiry on the phones. I mean, making sure that we've got really well-trained people, because, if the first point of entry, if the first point of conversation isn't a good one, or leads people down a pathway. I mean, we always like to say, the way we do sales here is right people, right river, right time. And we can't often do that via the internet. It's got to be with a phone call. It's got to be the inquiry comes in because of the campaign, the social campaign, or the media campaign, or the AdWords campaign, or whatever is out there. But then when they're talking to that human, and that human can interview them and work with them to find out what is it that I really want to do. And because the right person, the right river, the right time is a wonderful experience. The wrong person on the wrong river at the wrong time is miserable for them and everybody around them and our staff. And so, and I think that our staff know that we want to take that care. We just don't want to put somebody on a trip just for the sake of punching a number.
Well, speaking of which, I have 2 members of my team who are rafting the Kennebec with your group today, actually. Megan and Whitney are there, and they're producing one of their on-the-road Instagram stories. So I'm excited about seeing it because it's a beautiful day out today. I'm kind of jealous of them.
Yeah, no, I'll be when we're finished here. I'll run upstairs. I know they're back because I've heard the noise upstairs, and not just their noise, but other people's noise as well. And,
yeah, right.
And
I'm not with them. So they're not quite as loud as I am.
I'll certainly make sure we carry on the martial tradition of at least having one beer with.
Okay, yeah, please do. Please tell them that I'm really jealous because I'm not there. So, Russell, my final question is to help PR Maven Nation connect with you and Northern Outdoors. What are some of the best ways they can get in touch with you and learn more about Northern Outdoors?
That's pretty simple, hopefully. I mean, hopefully it all drives through the web and northernoutdoors.com. And from there, you can find us on, LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or whatever else might be out there today. And or you can give us a call. The phone still works, and 207-663-4466, and somebody will be here.
That stands for RAFT, right? 446 RAFT.
Actually, so that's a different number. So it used to be 7. So good memory. 7238 was as RAFT. So we can use 2 numbers. 1-800-765-7238, which is RAFT. Good memory. And then we use the 663 number as well. But either of those 2 ways are the primary ways to get people to us.
Okay, yeah. And knowing that you like the telephone, I hope people will call you up and have a conversation.
We'd love to.
Well, Russell, this has been, as I expected, it has been a lot of fun. So thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing you again in person and hopefully at our party on September 25th at Rising Tide Brewery.
I'm going to put it down in the diary right now, and I would love to try and make that. And Nancy, thanks for inviting us along, and thanks for all you've done for us in the past. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. It's an important part of my history and my career. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.